Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Government-Wide Professional Services Category Spotlight webinar. My name is Carla Kouar, and I am a program specialist within the PSHC portfolio. That's Professional Services and Human Capital portfolio. Today's topic is the SBA's Mentor Protégé program for contracting professionals. With that, I'd like to introduce today's speaker, Kanika Perkins. Kanika is the Deputy Director of the All Small Mentor Protégé program for the Small Business Administration. She leads a team of application and continuing eligibility analysts, and she oversees the operations of the program. With that, it is a pleasure to introduce Kanika, and I will hand it over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Again, my name is Kanika, or some call me K.A. Perkins, and I am Deputy Director of what is now called the SBA Mentor Protégé program. Some of you might know it as the All Small Mentor Protégé program. We'll get into that a little bit into the webinar, but we basically just combined programs effective November 16th of 2020. So the 8A Mentor Protégé program and the All Small Mentor Protégé program are now one and resides at SBA headquarters in DC. I am actually really happy to talk to you guys today about the program. I actually began my career at GSA in Region 6. I worked in PBS, specifically in construction. So I'm more than happy to talk to a group of GSA contracting professionals about the offerings of SBA. So with that, I will go ahead and get started. So today we're going to have an overview of what the program actually offers. So first, some program benefits. There are 6 different types of program benefits that a protege, which has to be a small business, we'll talk about that in a few slides, and either a small business mentor or an other than small mentor. There's six types of business assistance that I guess the protege can receive. So there's management and technical assistance. There's financial assistance, which exists in many forms, including the mentor being able to own or inject 40% equity into the protege firm. There's contracting assistance that usually happens in the form of joint ventures. There's international trade education, business development assistance, and administrative assistance. So the way it works is essentially this. You have a small business. The small business believes a deficiency exists. So for example, they do not have proper accounting software or a person who could actually conduct accounting services. So let's say it's something as simple as that. They find a mentor on their own, and then the mentor protege agreement that they both sign up for and agree to talk specifically about the type of business assistance that the mentor will provide the protege. So if it's QuickBooks, we're going to meet, let's say twice a month. We're going to talk about these certain topics and then use XYZ deliverables in order to measure that success. So that's kind of a little bit of what that looks like. And also, before I go to the next slide, I get this question a lot from different contracting offices. The question is, do 2 firms have to actually have an MPA in order to form a joint venture? And the answer is no. So if it's 2 small businesses or combined, if they are small for the NAICS code that they're pursuing, then no, they do not have to participate in our program, but our program does provide a formal relationship between the 2 parties. And also there's accountability that's involved as well. Okay, so just kind of looking at it at a 30,000 foot view, there's 3 types of assistance, if you will, that can take place in this type of relationship. So you have business development, which we just went over. You have subcontracts, which is simply when the protege firm actually performs work as a sub for the mentor who's working as the prime. And then you have joint ventures, which essentially SBA loosely defines that as two or more firms rather coming together to perform work that neither firm can perform on their own. Okay, so the end result, because there are actual outcomes that we're wanting to see, is that the protege expands capacity in order to bid independently. So the way I usually tell people, it seems overly simple, but we are the U.S. Small Business Administration. So it's the small business that is our primary, I guess, goal, if you will, in actually seeing the success that can develop. So applying to the program is on the onus of the protege. Program compliance is on the onus of the protege. And we're really wanting to see that protege is indeed growing as a result of participating in our program, or for that matter, in any of the other programs. Okay, so the now called Mentor Protege program has existed since 2016. So it is just about the newest program I know of at the U.S. Small Business Administration. And in that time, we've been able to approve more than 1,871 mentor protege agreements, which is pretty significant when you think about it. I'll just say it this way. The last time I gave this presentation, or the last time I looked, which was just months ago, we were at just over 1,500. So we are, hopefully helping a lot of firms come together, build capacity, get contracts, and become more independent and self-reliant as they're receiving that business assistance. Okay, so eligibility. And again, we're the Small Business Administration, so most of this is the eligibility of the protege firm. So first, let's talk about the final rule. So for those of you who follow any type of regulatory changes, there was a really big rule change that was effective November 16th of last year. And it was kind of an all-encompassing rule, but the main rule change had to do with the now Mentor Protege program. And so I'll go over specifically what that entailed. So by consolidating the two programs, there were some, I guess, additional tools put in the toolkit that we didn't really have before. So one is annulments, which is exactly how it sounds. So a mentor-protege relationship is much like a marriage, if you will. So there are times when the relationship doesn't really work out, but it's important to know that the protege firm can only have two lifetime mentor-protege relationships, whereas the mentor doesn't have a lifetime limit, but they can have no more than 3 concurrent relationships with protege firms. So in this case, a relationship doesn't work out. Either party can actually annul that relationship within the first 18 months. And this is just kind of more of a clarification. So before I go any further, in case any of you have read the final rule and have questions about it, I like to say that there's 2 types of changes or notifications that happen in these final rules. One is an actual new thing, if you will, kind of like annulments. Annulments previously was not set in stone in our regulations. The other ones are clarifications, and I would venture to say that most of what's in the final rule is more of a clarification than a new type of rule change. Good character from a mentor is one of those kind of rule changes, but kind of a clarification as well. So this is more of an internal thing where SBA in every instance doesn't have to necessarily make a determination as of good character. That doesn't necessarily include suspension and debarment, but just kind of an overall picture of the mentor's character. Okay, next, the mentor cannot submit competing offers, which is exactly the way it sounds. And this too is a clarification. So if there's a single requirement, the mentor can't say, well, I have 3 separate mentor-protege relationships with 3 separate mentors. I'm going to submit 3 proposals on 1 requirement. So that's clearly a practice that would be considered unethical. So that is something per our regulations that a mentor is unable to do. And I spoke about this a little while ago. This is, again, another clarification that mentors can have no more than 40% equity or ownership of that protege's firm. Just so that you guys know, this is something that happens outside of our program. Just to explain this a little bit. So our regulations actually speak to how much equity a mentor may have in a protege's firm. That doesn't necessarily mean that we administer that in any way. So there's not a standard form or an SBA form out there that says, okay, mentor and protege, if you agree to do this, then this is how we provide oversight. The reason, however, that we have this in our regulations has to do with affiliation. So what we're saying is that there can be up to 40% equity in the protege firm, ... without a finding of affiliation. So hopefully that makes sense. That's something that I oftentimes have to clarify for small businesses because they think it's actually part of the program and it's not. Those are terms that happen outside of our program and can supersede or last beyond their tenure in the program. Okay. And so then some other things that have probably been discussed as long as I've been in government, if not longer, is this notion of medium-sized firms. So you got small, and then contracting people always say other than small. Well, what about medium businesses? So that was discussed briefly within the final rule, and the determination, of course, is that we don't really think that's a thing. You got small businesses and you got other than small, and we're not going to make a determination between those other than small businesses with revenue of less than 100 million and those over a revenue of 100 million. Okay, and then one exception to some of the rules I spoke of before is that if the proteges are in Puerto Rico, then they may have up to 5 MPAs. And so this is regarding mentored firms. And essentially what it's saying is that the first 2 don't count. So that is one exception to the number of mentor-protege relationships a mentor can have in our program. Oh yeah, and this is one more thing. We are eliminating reconsideration. So this kind of created a bit of a hamster wheel internally where someone would apply. We would say, okay, something is either in error or it's omitted. We're giving you 5 days to rectify that. We have found the applicant to be non-responsive. We decline their application. In the past, they were able to basically come back and do a reconsideration, thus creating that hamster wheel I talked about. The final rule basically is saying, okay, no more reconsiderations. When you are done and you are declined, you can reapply in 60 days. So it is really important that that protege uses the one and done approach, as I like to say, and get it done correctly the first time. Okay, so with regard to the final rule, which is the consolidation of the 2 programs and joint ventures. So the first one being that there's no joint venture approval from SBA, including competitive 8A joint ventures. So the way things were before is that the then All Small Mentor Protege program did not review or approve joint ventures. However, if you were an 8A, then your servicing district office would approve those joint ventures. As a result of the final rule and the consolidation of the two programs, the only time SBA as an agency, specifically the local district office, the only time that they actually review a joint venture is if it is an 8A, of course, going after an 8A sole source requirement. Otherwise, those joint ventures are always reviewed and approved by the contracting officer. Next, the joint venture may receive unlimited contracts in a 2-year period. So many of you who are familiar with the Mentor Protege program understand this whole notion of the 3 and 2 rule. So a mentor and protege, they come together, they have a mentor protege agreement, they form a joint venture based off of that mentor protege agreement, and they can earn within a 2-year period up to 3 contracts, which the count would then begin at the start of winning the first contract. As you could probably guess, that basically entailed a lot of administration within SBA, trying to figure out the count for that. So let's say a mentor and protege come together, they put out 6 or 7 solicitations, maybe the first 3 didn't come through, they got loser letters on all of those, and then the 4th one, they get a contract award. So basically with the old rule, the count would start there and not with the first submission. But because, it's pretty tedious, a number of mentors and proteges were also concerned that it perhaps wasn't enough. It's already a temporary entity in that it's 2 years, so why limit us to 3? And so SBA listened, SBA changed that part of the rule, and now there is unlimited contracts that the mentor protege team can earn within a 2-year period. Okay, and this comes down to facility clearances. So this is actually a pretty important part of the rule that I perhaps was overlooked a little bit, depending on how you see it. So SBA is basically saying here that on certain procurements where there's some type of, clear or top secret clearance or something like that that's needed, that is basically enough for the personnel themselves to actually have that facility security clearance. So in other words, the joint venture itself doesn't have to have the clearance if the members have the clearance, if that makes sense. So SBA got rid of populated joint ventures a long time ago. And this kind of follows that same notion, if you will. We don't really allow or focus on joint ventures from an aspect of the joint ventures employees. And so I think it was 2016 that SBA finally said, okay, we're doing away with populated joint ventures. And it's a different concept, but I think if you think about it, they're pretty similar. So so essentially, the mentor has its personnel and the protege has its personnel. And that same mindset, I think, kind of went into the security clearance notion. So there are times when a mentor and protege come together, in part because at least one of those parties has the clearances that they both need. And there have been procurements where the contracting office has come back and said, you know what, both of you don't have it, or the joint venture entity itself doesn't have it. So, we therefore find you ineligible. And so this rule change is addressing that. Okay. And again, there was just another notion of the 40% equity. I guess I do have it in here a lot. It comes up a lot. So MPP eligibility. So what does it mean to be eligible for this program, especially as a protege? So you have to be a for-profit business. There can be no determination of affiliation. You have to qualify as small for the NAICS code in which you're applying. Again, with that 40% rule, so no more than 40% equity in the mentor. And think about it, that's if you already have a relationship with that mentor. Which, I mean, just the perception of that alone can just kind of lead to findings of affiliation. So, and again, no more than 2 mentors in a lifetime, and then no more than 3 proteges at any one time. So those are kind of the parameters for eligibility. So the application process. Now, I know you guys are contracting professionals. So, you know, at first glance, you might say, well, why am I interested in this? It's all about planning. So when these protege firms, when these mentors and proteges, they come together, they are interested in a procurement that you guys have, it is very imperative that they plan accordingly, because we do not approve applications within a matter of weeks. It is more or less a matter of months. And case in point, I'm just going to click my way through this real quick so that you can actually see it. So this is what things look like for the mentor. So you're going to select your mentor, or for the protege rather, my apologies. A protege is going to select the mentor, register in SAM, apply through certified, and then, and you see that right, allow for 105 days. So as you can imagine, merging 2 programs together, that our program is even more popular than it previously was. So these are right now, these are real numbers and not just some hypothesis. So it really does take at least 15 days for screening and about 90 days for processing. And we always encourage, and we're even updating our website to define and show what this means when my analysts actually talk about submitting a clean case. It's essentially an application without errors and omissions, and actually how to do that. And then we always say that in the meantime, for the protege to remain responsive, we tend to send a lot of things by email, and you wouldn't guess how many times a protege just didn't see an email, or it went in spam, and now they're found to be non-responsive. I include this in the presentation because it's important that you guys understand exactly the hard work that they're putting in order to make the mentor-protege agreement alone. I'm not even talking about the joint venture yet, but just the mentor-protege agreement plausible or possible, I guess. Okay, so maintaining eligibility. So the responsibilities of the protege firms are this. They submit annual reports. So they are to let us know exactly how those relationships are going. They also present to us financial reports quarterly. And once they form a joint venture, they are to let us know. That's what that certificate of compliance is for joint ventures. As soon as they form that in SAM, they send the DUNS number of the new entity to us so that we actually know that there's a joint venture that exists for them. And we can create reports and metrics and so forth on our end. And then the mentor is responsible simply for providing meaningful assistance as described in that agreement. So the mentor's role is simply to hold up his or her end of the bargain. Okay. And SBA simply reserves the right to terminate any agreement for non-compliance if the mentor hasn't provided that proper assistance. You'll notice that the last one I actually scratched out intentionally. So we used to, and this will become relevant to you when you see welcome letters, as we call them, from the protege firms that show that they are actually participating in our program. Some of the older ones may say something about 3 years. we've changed that internally so that it's basically a program that is up to 6 years. So unless SBA or one of the parties to that mentor protege agreement terminate the agreement, it is up and running as long as they remain compliant. And before I go into joint ventures, which is a super hot topic, we're at 20, was about 26, 27 after. I am happy to stop and take some questions.
Okay, Kanika, did you want me to read some off to you?
You know, if you wouldn't mind, and I'm going to see if I can pull these up.
I would be happy to.
Okay, I'm actually looking at them. Either one of us can read them. I'm fine with either one.
Okay, I'll start reading them off to you, and then we'll go from there.
Sure.
The first one is, the first question we have comes from Sharon. She's asking if a mentor is a large company of 100,000 plus, does the mentor limit of free apply?
Yes, it applies in every circumstance. So just like contracting activities, SBA doesn't really differentiate between, and other than small business of less than 100 million and one that earns more than 100 million. And other than small business, or a mentor is just that. A mentor, by the way, and I think I said this before, but it's hard to kind of wrap your head around it. Like a mentor can be another small business, but just be more experienced. So regardless of the size, the rules are the same.
Okay, awesome. So next question we have is, since the SBA is no longer approving JVs on competitive acquisitions, how will you know if a mentor submits competing offers?
Because you tell us. It's the best answer. And yes, I've had it happen before where a CEO literally emailed me and said, hey, guess what's happening? And, you know, I documented it and discussed it with legal and worked with the contracting activity from there. So you're the one who tells me.
Awesome. Okay, we've got a question from Shaw. And it is, where and how do we register our company for the MPP program?
Okay, if you are a company applying, then you simply go to our site. And one person put on here about the link, meant to say something about that. So we are literally right in the middle of changing our website. So maybe that is why it's not coming up. So again, the rule change was back in November. I think I actually got a copy or a final copy of the web copy yesterday. So it should be updated any day now. So just be a little patient with us and you should be able to hopefully see it sometime this week.
Awesome. And is that link that they've put in the Q&A chat the correct one?
I will know once the communications office tells me.
Okay.
I love giving great answers. I know that's not a great answer, but I do not know the new web address or how they're going to make those final changes.
Okay, fair enough. We've got two questions from Erica. The first question is, I am interested in learning what MPP can bring to a large mentor organization. The organization I work for is a graduate of the 8A. Well, I don't know if that's a question, but she does ask if there are any restrictions on MPPs and joint ventures under SBA MPP program.
Okay, so I'm going through the first one. So as far as the benefits to a large mentor or a large business or a mentor, is essentially that, remember I said at the beginning that a joint venture is essentially two or more entities coming together to do what neither one of them can do alone. Well, I know it seems like, well, what is the other than small business getting out of it? They're getting 8A work that they're not eligible for. That is generally the gist of it. I mean, you know, there's reasons why you might want to teach someone how to use QuickBooks too, but for all intents and purposes, it's to get contracts that they would otherwise not be eligible for. And then the second part, are there any restrictions on MPP and joint ventures? You might have to be a little bit more specific. I'll tell you the two regs to look at are 13 CFR 125.9, which governs my office, and then primarily joint ventures is going to be 125.8. There's bits and pieces in different areas of 13 CFR, and I'll actually show you a slide in there, but yeah, you might have to be more specific for me to actually answer that question. So can you elaborate a little bit more on affiliation? Sorry, I didn't mean to take over the mic,
No,
Carla.
totally fine. That's completely fine by me.
So I just realized I did that. So, okay, so affiliation, and it took me a long time when I joined SBA to really figure it out. It's this term of art that people just toss around, and it just like, what does it mean? It means everything and nothing. Okay, so affiliation basically is a notion of control. So when we have these programs, SBA is very cognizant that control could very well be an issue. And control comes in many forms. Part of it comes in actually owning a part of that protege firm, and making decisions on behalf of that firm. For example, I won't stick on this too long because I know there's other questions and more stuff to present on. But in a former job, I used to be a business opportunity specialist in San Antonio. I had a portfolio of 8A firms, and I firsthand I saw it was an unofficial mentor protege kind of arrangement, not in the sense that we're talking about today. They had their own thing happening, but this protege was not able to make any decision on his own. What he went after, what he wrote, the accounting that he did, the compliance measures for our program, every single thing this company did was because another company told them to do it. That is a control problem. So that's a kind of an egregious example, but that's where affiliation goes toward. And our regs actually speak to it. It's 124 something, don't quote me on that. Might want to just Google 13 CFR and affiliation, it'll pop right up. Okay, so can she elaborate? Yes, I can. On the new Ed Wolsby still, oh, wait a minute, that's a different program. In the system of award management, our status disappeared in SAM, and we updated Beta SAM, we emailed the help desk. Okay, oh my goodness. I will tell you to contact Elisa Sheard, and remind me at the end of the presentation, and I think I might be able to use this annotate feature to actually type something out maybe, but I'll give you her email address to actually ask the question, but it would not be fair to that program for me to just kind of spew out some answer on something I don't work on, but I will give you a point of contact. Elisa is awesome. Okay, having trouble finding the company in Certify. I've submitted a help desk ticket. Send me an email personally. My email is at the end of this presentation. We will talk about it. And can I talk about the success of the program? Gotta be a little bit more specific, but I'm happy to brag on this program at any time. Let's see, when the companies register in SAM under a new name, is there a designation that it's a mentor protege program? The short answer is no. So a protege that enters as its own like protege entity, that's what it is. So I'm K.A. Perkins, Inc., and I am a small business that, certified as whatever in SAM. So if I have, and you might be asking about a joint venture and using a different term to explain a joint venture, maybe, I'm assuming. But if I have a joint venture with Carla, for example, there's not some badge or box to check that says, oh yeah, by the way, Kay and Carla have this MPA joint venture. I wish it were that simple, but it's not. So no. Let's see, I'm having trouble finding my company in certified, submitted a help desk tip. Did I read that one? But the issue still hasn't been resolved. Oh, I think that was Justin. Yeah, just send me an email, Justin. Okay, then two more, and I promise to go on. Let's see, is there a way to see what kind of small businesses large primes have teamed with, or a history of them? Oh, okay. What I can tell you, Bonnie, is that if you just Google SBA and active list of mentor protege agreements or active list MPAs, then it will take you to a page that will actually show you the active agreements that are out there. So, and it's updated once a month. It was just updated on the 5th. And Helene, I'm pretty sure my email is on one of the last slides. We'll go over it. And if you don't mind, I really want to stop there. I will touch on all these questions, but I really want to go into some joint ventures stuff, because that's a pretty important topic and I don't want you guys to miss it. So I'm going to minimize this in the meantime and just move on a little bit and see if we can come back to those. Okay, so joint venture basics, which might answer some of the questions you guys have. So MPA has to be approved before a JV can exist. Please remember that. So the reason is because that MPA is what is creating that waiver to affiliation, that word that I've been using a whole lot. So if the joint venture is created first, then they're already affiliated. I mean, it's just, just common sense. So for firms that are applying, you got to get your MPA first, and then you can form your joint venture. MPP, again, does not review or approve joint ventures. The district office approves joint ventures only for 8A sole source. And the reason for that first bullet is the next bullet. MPA JVs are granted exclusions from affiliation. MPA JVs may earn unlimited contracts in 2 years. That is new. Procuring activities must consider past performance individually by each partner to the joint venture as well as the joint venture itself. That's more of a clarification, but still rings true. And then again, I think I have it in here almost ad nauseum, but there really are a lot of bullet points about that 40% rule. Again, comes up a whole bunch. Okay, and so verifying eligibility. So in case you've just been kind of perusing through this presentation, this is actually a page to pay attention to. So let's say you have an apparent awardee, you want to make sure that not only, they have their stuff right in SAM, but that they are exactly who they say they are and they have exactly what they said they have, which should be an MPA JV. So there are definitely ways to check on that. So one is to get the welcome letter from the Protégé firm. Another is to look at that active list of mentor protege agreements. I think it was Bonnie's question I answered about that. And another way, and you don't have to use just one of these, you can do all of these for your official contract file, is to simply ask me. You can send an email to our inbox. You can send it directly to me and say, hey, just want to verify that this firm, has an active MPA with your office so that I can go ahead and proceed with making a contract award. So my information is right there on the right. See, I told you it was in here. First name, last name at sba.gov. Okay, and resources. So this is all the regulatory stuff. So especially when I do these trainings, I want to make sure that you leave with more than what you came. So I like to present where stuff is in our regulations so you don't have to go dumpster diving alone. So some of the things that You may care about, for the person that asked the WOSB or ED WOSB question, it's 127 rather, 506. And on the bottom left, 125.9, again, governs the now SBA Mentor Protege Program. And there's stuff in here about all types of things, including joint ventures, which is 125.8. And this is just kind of a breakdown of topics in 13 CFR, so you can see exactly where stuff is. One of the most important sections is probably the least discussed, which is that SBA size regulations in 13 CFR 121. Yeah, you don't think you need that until there's a protest, and then you need it. So I always tell people, no matter what you do for a living, to read up on that. If it's anything federal, read up on it. So here's some more regulations, and then for support. So I'll put all these up here at once. So we have our site, which is a little under construction, but bear with us. We've got some really good stuff that's actually going in there for contracting people, prospective participants, and current program participants as well. Again, here's the list for the active list of MPAs. And I would say, if I haven't done so already, probably by the end of this week, that should include 8A MPAs that did not transfer over to what was then the All Small Mentor Protege program. So remember, we had two programs that combined, but some of them stayed 8A. So that list will be going up on the same page as the list for what was then the All Small, if that makes sense. And then another question I get asked a lot, and I haven't been asked yet today, but I'm going to answer it anyway. So number 3 is a joint venture guide. So since this is the responsibility of contracting activities, this I think is a really good guide. It's an oldie but goodie. It's been around for a while, but I think it's really helpful in understanding what needs to be in that joint venture and exactly what to look for. And then finally, if you have any questions along the way, send something to the Mentor Protege Program mailbox. I administer it. So send something there and I check it daily. Or you can send something to me directly, and that is my contact information. I was really bold to do that, but somehow it's worked out. And I'm not even sure he knows it, but the acting director, I put his info on here as well. So if the first two don't work, feel free to contact Mr. Stanley Jones, and we'll get you taken care of. So I think we have just over 15 minutes left in the rest of the presentation, but I wanted to make sure we at least got through the nuts and bolts so that I could go back and answer some questions. So, and I think there are more questions. And I promise not to take the mic this time, Carla, so I'll let you shoot.
Sure, absolutely. Okay, the first question we have is, what is the minimum requirements for getting a contract with the federal government for a small business startup?
The minimum requirements, well, for getting a contract, that's contract specific. Yeah, that's the best way I can answer that, unless you're asking me a specific question about joining the Mentor Protege program. So feel free to elaborate on that one. I'll just keep reading or answering the questions that Carla reads, and we'll go from there.
Okay. We have a question that says, when you say protege would get 8A work they normally wouldn't be qualified for, how is 8A work different? It's for smaller amounts or a set aside?
So Elizabeth, what I was actually talking about was the benefits for a mentor. So oftentimes protege firms, and they call me directly. I say this because I really do mean it, because I'm also the person who gets called when these relationships don't go well. So it's important that both parties see the benefits of the other party. So what I was saying was that a mentor would participate in this program because he or she would be able to pursue contracts they would not be eligible for. So generally speaking, you have a small and a large business working together respectively as a protege and a mentor. So the mentor, being an other than small business, most likely is not in the 8A program. They might have been previously, but they're not. And if you're not an 8A, you can't partake in 8A set aside. So it would benefit them to have an MPA with a protege that was actually an 8A, or for that matter, a Hubzone or an SDVOSB, an ED Wellsby or Wellsby, or whatever the case. It could even come down to technical expertise as well. But there's benefits to be gained on both sides, was my point.
Okay, the next question is, if a JV has a small business that is a Hubzone company, but it doesn't show up in SAM or the dynamic search, how can that be corrected for that business?
The JV has a small business that is a Hubzone company, but does not show up in SAM. You're talking about the, okay, so you're talking about the joint venture versus the protege firm. Okay. First, let me just say this, because I'm not going to give you a perfect answer when no one has a perfect answer to that. So this has been discussed internally at SBA, the notion of there being some type of tickler, checkbox, whatever you want to call it, that says, okay, this joint venture is, Hubzone eligible, and this is how, or this is why, and then that SAM documentation or data actually flows into DSBS. I've even been a part of management meetings where that's been discussed, and I have not to this very moment heard a solution for that. So essentially what it comes down to is being able to show the certification of the protege firm. So most contracting activities are going to understand what that looks like, and what it takes to be. Basically, if it's a joint venture that is a Hubzone, then they would know most likely that the certification is based on the eligibility of the protege firm. So providing that additional documentation as part of the proposal would probably be beneficial. But there is no clean answer to that. It's a void that is well known of and discussed, just not resolved.
Okay, the next question is, we are an 8A company looking for a mentor. What's the best way to locate one? Does the SBA have a list of graduated firms looking to possibly partner?
So first and foremost, SBA is not a matchmaking program. So we really do put the onus on the protege firm to locate a mentor on his or her own. With that being said, there are ways to, I guess, go about it. And so one is to see who's out there selling whatever it is that the government's buying. So, you can look at our site of active MPAs. You can also look at FPDS&G per NAICS code or per agency, especially if you know exactly what it is you're wanting to pursue and with whom. That's another way to go about it. And I know it's tough right now, given the circumstances that we're all in. Another one, of course, would be networking, but not really a word that you hear too much currently. What I would say is the safest way to really go about that, is if you are approached by a firm, or you want to approach a firm, that you try them out and date them first. And dating them in the federal procurement sense means subcontracting. That's a safe way to go about it. There's much less risk, and there is less risk of wasting your two on a relationship that's not going to work out. Because just because they're profitable doesn't mean your relationship will be successful. There's a lot more to a good relationship than their revenue. See, sounds like I'm talking about marriage.
Okay, so the next question is, do we have to be an 8A to be in the Mentor Protégé program?
Nope. You just be an eligible small business.
Awesome. We've got a clarification on that minimum requirements question. How many employees and budget the business worth?
Well, okay, so now you're starting to talk about NAICS codes and size. And so that depends on what it is you're going after. So, if you're in construction, you're going after construction, your NAICS code might be 236220. I believe the size standard for a really long time now has been 36.5 million. And so that's how we would determine whether your revenue is small. Now, one thing that has changed within SBA within the last year or two is the average is now 5 years and not 3 years, but we give people the option of 3 years. I don't know why you would choose 3 over 5, but another topic for another day. So yeah, that's basically how you determine size in federal government. So it just depends on what you're going after and what your industry code is.
Okay, is the Mentor Protégé mandatory for getting a contract with the federal government?
Nope, you can go about it on your own. It is just a teaming program that is designed to build capacity for an eligible and or disadvantaged small business. That's all it is. There's more than one way to proverbially skin the cat. So you don't have to go through our program to get a contract, but it is a way to build capacity, especially in this environment of category management, where there are fewer vehicles for higher dollar amounts with greater complexity that require greater capacity.
Okay, we've got a follow-up. This would cause an issue in getting the Hubzone credit within FPDS NG since it's linked to SAM.
I haven't heard anyone really talk about that. Yeah, I mean, I hear you. Yeah, I really don't know. I really don't. I don't know if there's a workaround around. And let me just say this before I spend too much time on, because I know we only have 6 or 7 minutes left. If that were that big of an issue, I almost feel like we would hear more about it at the SBA level with the monthly SBPAC meetings, because those meetings are all about meeting small business goals. So if no one was able to meet the goals for joint ventures because of some issue with SAM, I almost feel like I'd have heard about that by now. I'm not doubting you. I'm just saying, like, I'm surprised that would be true and I had not heard about it. That's all I got for that one. But stay tuned.
Someone just mentions here that national 8A associations may be helpful in identifying potential mentors.
Okay, well, I mean, thanks for that. I can't endorse it one way or the other. But yeah, thanks for that. That might be helpful to someone.
Okay. Okay. How do you qualify who would be a good mentor? I'm sorry about that. They work in your NAICS and past performance, etc.
Okay, what part is the question? I'm sorry, I feel like I missed it.
I'm not sure, Elizabeth, if you want to clarify a bit more on that one, we will be happy to.
Oh, is that okay, the one at 155? How do you qualify who would be a good mentor? The short answer, Lisbeth, is that's why you would sub with them. I mean, so you have your own business plan, you know what you do, you know what you want to do and where you want to take your company. And so, you would look at companies that are already there and see what kind of subcontracting relationship you could get with them. I mean, that's real high level, but I mean, I'd start there.
Okay. I don't know that these are, did we answer how do you qualify a mentor?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, someone wrote you need to have synergy between the companies. Okay. Okay, here's a question. Must it be filed as a legal joint venture or would a teaming arrangement, if approved by the SBA under the program, suffice?
So I believe, and I can't, off the top of my head, I can't remember which part of the FAR it is, but it's in the FAR. The FAR specifically, and I can't remember if 13 CFR really touches on this, but my point is SBA does not approve teaming agreements, nor necessarily, and I wish I could remember exactly how it's written, but contracting offices don't necessarily either. So there is, I believe the FAR refers to it as a teaming arrangement and not a teaming agreement. In case you want to go dumpster diving for that. But basically it says, and this is a really bad paraphrase, but you could be as nebulous as you want to at the proposal stage. That's pretty much what the FAR says. So the short answer is SBA does not look at that, and you can be pretty liberal on what it is you propose to the federal government.
Okay, it looks like we just have one more question, and it's from Jacqueline. She's asking, as far as sub-K reporting, can primes count their tier 2 if in mentor protege?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think that has the mentor protege program doesn't preclude you from being able to do that.
Okay, and I don't know if this is really a question, but she writes, as a large, we would never be able to even see set-asides in eBuy or participate in any set-aside unless we have a protege, which is a big benefit.
Correct. So again, proving the point that both parties have something to gain from such a relationship.
Okay, it looks like there's one more question that came in, and we can go ahead and answer that before we wrap up, if you don't mind. It
Sure.
is, we are sub to our prime. Does that automatically mean it's a team, or are we saying that both go in as primes and that means teaming?
In the SBA sense and in the FAR sense, they are not the same thing. Teaming is something that is a little nebulous, but specifically, it's just some firms agreeing to work together some kind of way. I know it sounds super vague. That's pretty much what teaming is. It doesn't really include subcontracting in the regulatory sense. So subcontracting is just subcontracting, but teaming can be something that looks maybe a little bit more like a joint venture.
Awesome, perfect. I think that pretty much wraps up all of the Q&As that I saw coming in. Kanika, thank you so much for your time today. I know I learned a lot, and I'm sure a lot of people found that very valuable as well. I want to thank everyone for taking part in this month's Spotlight webinar. We hope that you're able to join us for the next one, which won't be until May 18th, but we will be covering civilian contract audits. With that, I'd like to thank everyone, especially you, Kanika, for all of your great information on the Small Mentor Protégé program. Thanks, everyone.
Certainly. All right, thank you.